everybody, Bill here. This is my monthly episode of Lessons Learned from my blunders of hiking on the trails. This month I'm going to take on powering up in town, powering up in general. It's just one of those things that takes a lot of time. If your cell phone or your GPS runs out of power on the trail, it's a problem, especially with apps like gut hooks and trails that may not be that well marked. I mean, you need it, and from a safety perspective, it's not something. Some people say, well, don't plug in, don't disconnect. I don't. I use a DeLorme GPS. My family loves to know where I am. They like to know when I'm safe. I use a smartphone during the day to take pictures and to look at gut hooks to see where I am, to make sure I'm on the trail, or reference a guide online. I don't carry paper stuff, and I find it kind of a pain to use it. So if you use electronics like that, then you're going to consume power. So how do you get there? So what I try to look at is what's the best method for me. And what I do is every night, after I get my tent set up and stuff like that, I turn everything off and I charge it for an hour. I plug my phone and my GPS in, and they typically have drained down to 55 to 60%, during the day. And I need to get that up to, I want to get that up to 90 plus, so that I'm just topping up every day. How many of those top ups can I get? And I really want, to me, if I can get 5 top ups, then that means I can be out for 5 nights. And that's a lot. And there are times where you get long sections of trail where you're like, you're going to be on the trail for 5 days and 5 nights and 6 days. So how do I get there? Well, in the past, I used a 10,000 milliamp charger, and I don't know about you, but I ended up with lots of little ones as I went through time, even like these little guys, right? You end up like, oh, I keep running out of power, man. I got to go buy one, and then you buy another one, and then you buy another one. Well, I want to end that. I'm done. I've learned, I know what my consumption is roughly, and I figured out a method to calculate that. And it's in the comments section. You'll see a document which gives you a method to figure out with your current stuff what your consumption rate is in 1 hour increments. And what I did, and I recommend this, is you get yourself a kitchen timer or any kind of thing that will do 60 minutes. Charge up your, take your battery, discharge it to 0. Take whatever adapter you have, charger, and charge it up. Time, start time and end time, how long it took to charge with that charger, cable, and battery. So you just type, 9 in the morning, and then when it ends, 12 or 1 in the afternoon. So that's 4 hours, all right? And then discharge it. Discharge it like you were on the trail with your phone and your GPS and your MP3 player and your headlamp or whatever else you got, right? Or your camera. And do those in 60-minute increments. When this goes off, unplug everything, record the beginning percentage depletion, so it was at 55%, and at the end it was, say, 95%, in 1 hour, and just do that. So how many of those chunks of charges do you get out of your system, and how long does it take to charge the battery with the system? My goal was to get to 3 to 4 hours. Going from 14 hours to 3 to 4 hours was big, right? Because that was really what I wanted to do. So what's the constraint? Well, most people use something like this, all right, and this literally took this 14 hours to get this, and the reason is simple. This outputs 1.2 amps per port, okay? This is all about amps. Okay? You can read all the stuff about volts and watts, but it gets simple, it's amps. And the reason I say that is, if you look at the back of these guys, these are the batteries, then all of them have it. They tell you the input amperage and output amperage, right? You don't care that much about output. You care about the input, all right? Now, a lot of them, like these, are 1 amp, and this is why it takes 4 to 7 hours to charge these things, because it's just dribbling current into it. How do you get rid of that constraint? Because I want to get to 3 amps. I want to get higher, because the higher you get of the amperage in here, the faster the charge rate input is. Output is going to be 1 to 2 amps, whatever your device needs, and most devices between 1 to 2 amps is what they need. Your phone isn't going to take more than that, typically, right? So how do I get there? Well, that's the constraint, right? A constraint is this will only put out 1.2 amps, and this will take 2 amps. So that's 0.8 amps that isn't getting fed into this. This takes up to 14 hours doing this. That's not going to work for me, right? okay? Let alone all the other little batteries I have. So then I looked at different options. All right, well, what if I went to this? This is an Anker. This is 4.8 amps. That's 2.4 and 2.4. Well, there we're getting closer, right? So now this gets charged down to 7. So magically, it halved. That's not really a mystery, right? Isn't it? So it's like, okay, all right, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're not there. We're not yet there, because that's still not close to where I want to get to, a 3 or 4 hour in town and out, right? So then what do? Well, I said, well, how about a different charger? You know, this is a Anker. This is very fancy. It's got the QC3 and Qualcomm and all that stuff. It's 6 amps. Each one is 3 amps. Wow. But again, if your charger only takes 2 amps, you can pump as much out of this as you want, but it ain't going to do anything. It's just going to bleed away. So that didn't really make any improvement, you know, besides the 2.4 amp, because it's, again, you're talking, it'll only take in 2 amps. So how do I change that? Well, it takes a different component, a different technology, and the inhibitor to this is really the cable. This is what you see on most devices. This is a micro USB cable, okay? It just plugs into the charger, the USB, and then it plugs into yours. And this is what is common. This is standard. It goes on your GPS, on your, MP3 player. Everything pretty much has. It's pretty much a standard, right? That's limited to 2, and in some cases even less than 2. All right. So you need to change that. So this is the USB-C connection. Okay, now we're talking. Okay, because this will take up to 3. This will take 3 amps. All right. And how do I get that? So now I have another problem, right? I can get 3 amps down the line, and I can deliver 3 amps here, right? But now I need a battery that will take it, because if the input is only 2 amps, then again I'm stuck there. Well, there is one. Okay, I tested 2 batteries, and I realized that all these batteries, this 10,000 wasn't enough. I needed something a little more, because I want to be out for 5 nights, 6 days, because there are times where you will be. There just are. If the weather's great and you're cruising and you feel good, or why not keep going, right? Just get resupplied and go. Get in and out of town in 3 hours, and you're back on the trail. And if the town is awesome and it's a great hostel, then stay. But if it's not, then push on. Right? Why be constrained by that? That's kind of being like candy cat. Really, I don't want to be like that. So I tested 2 13.4s. And I said, well, 13.4, I don't want to go any higher than that. The 10 was good. It's also a weight thing. This is 11 ounces. Oh, my 10,000 is 6.4. 11 ounces. That's a lot. I opened the box. I thought it was a pound. And this is a competitor. This is 13.4 milliamp. This is 9.6. More like it. Because if I add up my 10,000 and one of the other ones, I'm at 9.6, right? This has got all the fancy QC3 and Qualcomm and all that stuff, but it's all for the output. If you look at the input, you're still stuck with the micro USB. So you're still, and it even tells you 2 amps. Right on the bottom, they'll tell you exactly the 2 amp input, right? This is 3 amps. If you look, it's got the micro, USB-C. It's also got the micro. So let's say you're hiking, and you've got, both these, right? Well, you plug one in here, and then let's say something happens to this. You lose it or whatever, right? You can just use another one, any cable. So you have the flexibility. This was huge. I got this down. This took 6 hours, right? Using this is 4.8 amps, or, which is interesting, the 6 amps. Didn't make a difference, okay? Which I thought would have made a big difference. It didn't. This took 4 hours from 0. This took 6 hours from 0, which makes sense. Because if you're basically charging at almost half an amp or more, then you should be getting more output. So you did. And I'll put the link of this and the charger as well. That's really important, okay, is look at the constraints. Do this test at home. It's very simple, and it's kind of fun. And you can say, oh, how can I make a little, and maybe you just have you just need a $20 charger, and you're good to go, and everything you have is great, and things like this, like these prongs that go in and out are important, okay? When you move up the food chain and you get the bigger ones, these prongs are stable, stuck. That's something you don't want either, right? So there's that. Now, the next part is consumption. A couple of things I've learned that's really helpful to me is the batteries on, the less you use of the device, the longer the battery's gonna last, right? So all I do on my phone now is primarily the gut hooks or some kind of GPS or a guide. I'll have the PDF and the guide, the PDF right in on the phone. It's great, right? Or I'll take some pictures. I'll do a couple 1-minute videos during the day, and that's it, And that'll take 40% of my battery out, right? Just doing that, because it's basically on looking for GPS, even though it's on airplane mode and battery saver mode. It's still working. So then I get to, like I said, I get to my camp, I set up, I charge for an hour every day, and that's where I've come to the conclusion. Now, what I did was, halfway through my Arizona trail, I wanted to make a change. So what I did was I used this thing. This is just a simple MP3 player. It's got the micro SD card. You plug it in, and you can go to a library, and you can download your music or podcasts or anything. Okay, this weighs probably about 1.5 ounces, maybe, yeah. And that'll go 24 hours of use without any recharging. And there's no risk. It's like it just keeps going, and then when it doesn't go, who cares? There's no risk to my security or safety, or if I get hurt, I can still use my Garmin, and that's perfect, or my cell phone. So that's what I would recommend, is just try to take as much away from the phone, all the music and the podcasts and the ebooks, audiobooks, and everything else. You try to move to a lightweight solution, and go from there. Also, by having, kind of centralizing your power in something like this, the phone, the GPS, I usually put them in my like a Ziploc bag, and I put them in the bottom of my sleeping bag at night. That and my water filter. That stuff hates cold. If it gets below freezing, it's not good for any of it. And I just do that as a habit. I mean, in the summer, of course not, but just in general, I do that. They also hate moisture, so you want to keep all that stuff away. Because I've had it where I've forgotten this. I've fallen asleep, forgotten it, and then woken up the next day, and this will be drained, and my phone is at 70%, and I got to make that last for 2 days or 3 days, and that's bad. It stinks. You don't want that. Okay. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, I'll put the links to the devices. What came out to be working out for me was basically 4.8 amps, and this is 3.6 ounces, and this is basically 13.4, which is 9.6 amps. That's what worked out. Total weight gain is 1.6 ounces, because it's double this. Okay, but you're getting something for that, right? And that's it. I gained 1.6 ounces, but I got much better. I gained 10 hours of charge time speed. If you're sitting on the floor somewhere and you're plugged in, you can sit there for 2 or 3 hours and read and do something. You can make it work, right? But if you're got 10 hours and more, you got other problems. You got to stay someplace, right? So hopefully this is helpful. And that's about it. Okay, bye.